Scorpio, take a slow breath and listen with the part of you that is older than your name. There is a quiet, insistent rhythm building beneath the noise of the week. The kind of low, steady drum you can't hear with your ears, but you feel in your bones. It doesn't bang on your door or shout your destiny. It hums like distant thunder over warm asphalt, like the ocean turning the tide in the dark. You've felt it lately in small ways. The near-miss coincidence, the repeating numbers, the flash of memory that arrives without context but with absolute weight. People around you chalk it up to stress, to the weather, to algorithms. Yet your intuition, the one gift you have never been able to silence, keeps leaning forward as if to say, pay attention. Something precious wants through. This message is not a siren of doom, and it is not a fortune cookie. It's a compass tuned to your signature frequency. You carry a rare pattern of depth and clarity, the kind of inner circuitry that doesn't burn out in chaos, but becomes more precise. You were not designed to skim the surface. You were made to read the currents that live underneath, where truth is too heavy to float. The story you've lived, every betrayal you swallowed, every night you kept breathing through a storm no one else could see, has been less a punishment than a preparation. Like fire tempering steel, like pressure turning carbon into something that keeps light forever. Even now, the world calls what you are too much or mysterious, when in fact you are correctly calibrated, sensitive enough to detect what's real, strong enough to carry it. And here is the first secret. This rare event isn't a single flash in the sky that appears on someone else's camera. It is an alignment, subtle, intimate, exquisitely timed, between who you have always been and what the moment requires. The universe doesn't need you to be louder. It needs you to be exact. You have been exact your whole life without applause. You held yourself like a lighthouse, fixed, quiet, refusing to dim even when fog made it feel pointless. When no one asked what it cost you to keep shining, you still did. When they mistook your boundaries for walls and your silence for indifference, you kept learning the harder language, to stay soft without turning yourself into a doormat, to leave without leaving your heart behind, to forgive without allowing the same harm to be rehearsed on your soul. You have practiced these contradictions so consistently that a doorway has formed in the space between them, and that doorway is opening now. You may notice it first in your body, a release across your chest, a breath that goes further down than usual. You may notice it in conversation, a sudden clarity about what you will no longer explain, the effortless no that doesn't need a courtroom to justify itself. You may notice it in small kindnesses you extend to yourself without grand declarations, drinking water, stepping into morning light, letting yourself stop when the project is done, instead of chasing one more proof. These are not lifestyle tips. They are instruments you are tuning to receive a broader bandwidth. Because when the signal strengthens, it won't feel like fireworks. It will feel like recognition, as if the path that once braided through dead ends is smoothing under your feet stone by stone as you walk. Trust that feeling. Trust the weird timing. Trust the conversation that lingers in your mind, not because it wounded you, but because a sentence inside it rang true enough to pivot you 2 degrees toward your future. This is how a rare event enters a life like yours, quietly, powerfully, with receipts. It shows you what to release by making keeping it impossible. It shows you what to keep by making letting go unthinkable. And it will never ask you to betray your own interior. If you have been feeling set apart, take heart. Set apart is not the same as alone. It means set aside for something sacred. It means the ingredients of your story have reached a temperature where new shapes can hold. Every detour taught your nervous system a dialect of resilience. Every unsent message taught your mouth the cost of truth. Every goodbye you gave yourself permission to make taught your feet the geometry of exits that don't break your spirit. This is what it looks like when preparation meets permission. Permission from whom? From you, and from the one who stitched your soul with the ability to sense what eyes can't. Call it God's plan. Call it providence. Call it the mysterious kindness that keeps planting mornings after the worst nights. You don't have to choose a label today. Just choose honesty, the kind that doesn't perform. Choose to admit that the tremor you feel isn't anxiety, it's arrival. The moment you stop arguing with that truth, watch what recalibrates. Plans that required you to be smaller will fall off like old paint. People who needed you confused will be confused by your clarity. Commitments you made while starving will be renegotiated by the version of you that eats. And love, real love, will stop feeling like a test and start feeling like a room where windows open themselves. Scorpio, this is your invitation. Step as you are, not as they prefer. Keep your eyes on the subtle instruments, the calm after no, the strength after rest, the softness that survives honesty. You are not late. You are right on rare time. Let's name what's changing so you don't gaslight yourself into missing it. The old script trained you to carry entire relationships on your back while calling it loyalty. It taught you to treat exhaustion as proof of love and silence as safety. That script made your worth contingent on being irreplaceable to people who replace themselves every time the work of intimacy began. The event approaching is not one person returns or one door swings open and saves everything. Those are movie shortcuts. The real miracle is structural. The lock that once kept your power out of reach is turning from the inside, and the key is your alignment with truth. When you stop negotiating against your own knowing, rooms change shape. Conversations stop circling and start revealing. Your calendar becomes a covenant instead of a punishment. That's not motivational fluff, it's a lived physics. Deep down you already trust this. Think of a moment when you honored your intuition even slightly, how the body relaxed like a guarded town, hearing the gates close at night. How peace arrived without a trumpet. How opportunity began to behave like weather, inevitable once conditions were met. That's what is scaling now. Not a single lucky break, but a climate shift. And climates do what they do, independent of anyone's opinion. You are weather, Scorpio. You've always been... People misread that in the past. They called you a storm when you were actually a season. Seasons look like stubbornness to those who worship comfort. But you are devoted to truth, and truth is not cruel. It's just incapable of pretending. Here's where it gets beautifully practical. The rare event expresses itself through precise offers, a collaboration that matches your ethics, a move that upgrades your nervous system instead of just your address. A conversation in which you tell the whole truth and discover the relationship doesn't break. It gets honest. A boundary that holds without theater. A use of your talent that stops bleeding and starts building. None of this promises you won't feel fear or grief. Trusting a plan larger than your ego is not anesthesia. It's authority. It's the authority to say, I'm afraid, and I'm coming anyway. It's the authority to stop auditioning for rooms that shrink your spirit and start preparing the rooms that need your exact frequency. Prepare how? By returning to basics that are actually advanced. Remembering water and sleep are sacraments. Treating silence as a tool rather than a punishment. Letting joy count as data. Scheduling recovery like it's mission critical. Refusing to make crises into your brand. Watch what happens when you stop earning what was meant to be received and start stewarding it. Scarcity is loud. Stewardship is quiet and consistent. The world may not clap for consistency, but it compounds. In this light, every former wound becomes a credential, not proof that you should be tested forever, but evidence that your system knows how to metabolize intensity without turning bitter. You learned how to let rage pass through without building a house in it. You learned how to love without leaking. You learned how to leave while blessing what is true. These are rare skills. They're not romantic. They're holy, and they position you for the next movement, transformation that spreads by presence. You won't need to announce it. The people who can feel will feel it. The ones who only read volume will miss it, and that's grace. Not everyone should be able to access you. Scarcity taught you to equate availability with kindness, but wisdom teaches you to equate clarity with kindness. Clear is kind, fast. This is where trust in God's plan becomes more than a phrase. The plan is not a maze where you prove your devotion by getting lost. It's a choreography where you consent to be led by the hand that knows the music. Consent looks small, saying yes to what aligns and no to what costs your integrity. Consent looks like not forcing. You can feel the difference in your solar plexus. Forcing feels like you're dragging a heavy table alone. Consent feels like the table grows wheels. The same daily task becomes lighter simply because it's finally pointed in a future that can hold you. Do not mistake this lightness for laziness. It is the physics of rightness. What about the voices that once made you doubt yourself? Let them echo where they were born, in rooms where fear dresses up as wisdom. Compassion, yes. Access, not necessarily. You can love people and still step out of their patterns. You can bless them and still bless yourself with distance. You can be fair without being available to confusion. Forgiveness without reunion is still forgiveness. Release without spectacle is still holy. Meanwhile, doors open, not because you manifested perfectly, but because truth is less expensive to maintain than lies. Your energy returns because you stop renting it to roles that never fit. Creativity returns because you quit writing scripts for other people's comfort. Desire returns because you finally let it speak without shaming it into silence. You know that hum you've been feeling? It gets louder, not as noise, but as a tuning fork aligns the whole room. In that sound, your next assignment becomes legible, to carry your light in a way that doesn't burn you. To work like a river, steady, shaping stone by presence. To love like good weather, nourishing, not performative. To speak like a bell, clear, specific, kind. This is the climax. Less fireworks, more foundation. The rare event is you accepting the weight of your blessing without apologizing for the space it requires. That acceptance is a keystone. With it set, the arch can hold. Scorpio, stand in your room for a second and notice the thresholds. The doorway you pass a dozen times a day without thinking. The window that makes morning honest. The mirror that has watched you practice leaving and staying. You are a threshold now. What used to be a line between who you were and who you'd like to be is becoming a seam, stronger because it holds two pieces together without pretending they are one. Integration is not glamorous. It's cups in the sink and honest bedtimes, and telling the truth before resentment needs a megaphone. It's choosing conversations over narratives, values over vibes, quality over the performance of urgency. It's reading your own signals the way sailors read clouds. And it's trusting that the one who designed oceans also designed your way across them. Does this mean the path goes flat from here? No, it means the hills finally make sense. You will still have days that sting and hours you don't post, and moments where old fear knocks like it pays rent. The difference is that you are rooted, not rigid. Rooted things can bend. Rigid things break. You are not here to impress the wind. You are here to learn its language. You will learn it by moving on time and resting on time, by distinguishing between the ache of growth and the ache of self-betrayal. You will learn it by letting small joys count as sacred, the text you answer with your whole attention, the meal you bless by actually tasting, the walk where you leave your phone at home and God finds you anyway. These are not distractions from your calling, they are conduits for it. Your presence changes rooms in ways you can't quantify. People calm down around you, not because you fix them, but because you refuse to escalate what's already on fire. Creativity behaves differently near you because you treat ideas like living things, not resources to strip mine. Children trust you because you don't lie about what hurts. Elders trust you because you don't lie about what heals. This is leadership, not the optics of power, but the temperature of peace. Don't be surprised if invitations arrive that look smaller than your ego imagined and larger than your old fear can tolerate. The correct ones will share a signature, alignment without contortion, responsibility without surveillance, compensation that honors the labor you've already done in the dark. Some will ask for your words, some for your design eye, some for your simple presence at the table. Check them against the inner instruments we named. If your breath grows shallow and your calendar shrieks, it's not yours. If your shoulders drop and your focus sharpens, the door is already open. You don't have to kick it. And when love approaches, because real love loves good timing, don't panic if it's quieter than your history. Drama is not a flavor, it's a symptom. Connection that respects your nervous system may initially feel suspicious to a heart that learned to equate adrenaline with intimacy. Breathe. Give it the time you never gave yourself. Let it earn your softness without auditioning for your pain. And if love means returning to yourself with deeper fidelity, that counts too. Solitude is not the absence of love. It's the presence of you. Now, a word about mission. The event the title names is not an apocalypse. It's a commissioning. The world is thick with noise dressed up as certainty. Your gift is not to add more noise. It is to introduce signal. You do that by telling the truth in your own accent, by refusing to become a museum of your worst day, by letting wonder survive efficiency. You do that by checking your motives like you check a pilot light, quietly, regularly, before you cook for the whole house. You do that by letting gratitude be specific. Thank you for the email that arrived when I needed it. Thank you for the song that softened me. Thank you for the nap that turned a cliff into a staircase. Specific gratitude trains your sight to find evidence of care. Evidence builds trust. Trust makes courage cheaper. Courage makes obedience possible when logic runs out of road. And obedience, to the nudge, to the alignment, to the peace that refuses panic, creates outcomes you don't have language for yet. Call that God's plan if it resonates. Call it providence if that's your tradition. Either way, it isn't random. You are not a glitch. You are a pattern. Patterns endure because patterns serve. And you serve by being exactly what you are. A translator between depths and days, a builder who knows darkness is raw material, a guardian who protects tenderness like it's sacred infrastructure. As you move forward, remember the simplest rules. Protect your sleep. Keep your word. Repair quickly. Learn the names of your neighbors. Leave rooms kinder than you found them. And support creators who keep the light on for others. When you're tired, don't quit. Change methods. When you're confused, don't crowdsource. Get quiet. When you're clear, move your feet. When you're blessed, share. This is the way rare becomes real. This is the way never seen before becomes, how did we ever live without it? You have survived every ending so far. What you're meeting now is a beginning that doesn't need spectacle to be sacred. It needs your consent. If your chest knows it's time, place a hand there. Whisper what is true. I'm ready to honor what is ready to honor me. I'm ready to be trusted with my own power. I'm ready to walk the road that fits my feet. Then step one honest action today, then another. The way will widen as you go. And if this message met you exactly where you needed it, join this circle of depth. Like this video, so the signal travels. Share it with the Scorpio who forgets how luminous they are. Subscribe and stay close. We're building a community where intensity is not punished. It is welcomed, matured, and turned into light that lasts. Your presence here matters. Your voice matters. Your future is already answering you. Stay with us, stay with yourself, and watch what becomes possible when a rare soul moves in rare time under a faithful sky.